Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen Era.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Hello, Christeen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm doing really well.
There's a little bit of sarcasm. I'm doing the best I can.
You're doing the best you can. That's all we can do, right? And we'll do our traditional, how's the weather in Colorado?
Yeah, so, we're starting to have fall roll in, which is always really pretty around here. And it's starting to cool off just a little bit. So I love fall. It's my favorite time of year. I'm used to more of a coastal fall because I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, but I've been experiencing more of, the mountainous and somewhat desert fall out here in Colorado, and it is very pretty. So I'm definitely enjoying the season change. It's not too cold, not too wet or rainy yet, so it's just right.
And I get to enjoy the beautiful traditional New England fall, which the trees will start to change. It's 80 degrees today. It's going to be high of 60 degrees next week. So typical New England. If you don't like the weather, wait a minute, it'll change. But we've had a great fall seeding season for overseeding lawns. And the lawns are looking good. The grass is coming up where the lawns we did have to seed, which is always good. I love to see that. So today's episode, we're going to be focusing on and diving into fix this next. What are we going to fix next? And it's a Mike Michalowikz book. And it talks about what you need to address in your business to fix the business and what you need to focus on and why. And he came up with a system or an assessment that you can take to figure that out. And we're going to be offering the free Fix This Next assessment at the end of the podcast. So stay tuned all the way through to get the information to find out how to get your free Fix This Next assessment.
Yeah, and I love the Fix This Next. This is another series of Mike's entrepreneurial, tools that he has. He really dove into what we need to focus on as business owners, because entrepreneurs, we can get pulled in so many different directions. And one of the tools that Mike created for this book was the business priority pyramid, where you can address the business's base level needs and continue to build on them, manage them, maintain them, as the business grows. And you and I both, Steve, were Fix This Next advisors. And I'm a founding fixer. And what that means is when Mike originally started this program, I, of course, signed up and I'm like, yeah, how can I support or help or be a part of this? And I love this process because as a pumpkin plan strategist, I was one of the people that he came to and said, hey, I need some testing done on the tools and the methods that I'm developing. And I had the pleasure of testing some of his processes that he developed in this book and giving him feedback. So it's another one of his books that's near and dear to me that really helps business owners, get out of the rut and the mud and the muck in their day-to-day operations.
Yeah, the first time Mike shared this process with me, I was like mind blown. I was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible to have an assessment that quickly shines light on what I need to be focusing on my business right now. And instead of trying to focus on everything all at once, do this thing first. That's what your business needs first. And that is in the business priority pyramid. Which is really cool. And the reason we need to focus on our business is I'm going to share some statistics with you. So 50% of all businesses fail within the first 5 years. So half of the businesses that register with the Internal Revenue Service, they're gone within 5 years. So they don't even make it to 1,800 days. 83% of businesses never achieve profitability So 83% never actually, they don't end up in a profitable zone. 88% of business owners make less money in their own business than if they had a job at a company in a similar position. So 88% of business owners are underpaid. Even if the business succeeds, they're still underpaid than if they had a job doing that job for another company. And 91% of business owners are actively trying to fix the wrong thing in their business 100% of the time. So 91% of business owners are focusing on the wrong thing 100% of the time. These statistics are real, so it just shows why businesses struggle so much. So the question that begs to be asked is why? Why do they focus on the wrong things?
Yeah, and I think, one of the main things that they go to and focus on is cash flow, right? Because cash flow is easy. They can go out, they can collect their accounts receivables, their, past 90 days. They, can run a discount. And this is kind of some of the things that are covered in the actual survival trap. And Mike Michalowikz originally unpacked that in the Pumpkin Plan. He shared it again in his, Profit First book. And he has shared it again in multiple books. So it's like, it's a great tool and visual that shows us, we're trying to move from point A to point B, and point B being our vision and what our business is there to do. And then all these other things come into play that distract us from that, whether it's offering another service, whether, we're looking at discounting our services because we need to get cash in the door, focusing on something else in our business, accepting clients or jobs that we don't want to work with because, they're what I call PITAs. So they really take us away from providing good service because they're so demanding, and they complain all the time. So there's all these other things, and, cash flow, it's one of those main issues, we're trying to solve because we need to make payroll. We don't have enough cash in the business. We can run a marketing plan or something like that, or campaign to quickly solve it. So they'll typically lean on the cash flow problem to solve so many problems in their business.
And that survival trap, I've been through it. If you've been in business for long enough, you've been through it where it's like, oh, I don't have enough cash. So the immediate action is we'll have a sale. We'll discount stuff. And so we're already not making enough money. So we're going to discount stuff to make even less money, or take on a job that we don't have a skill set for or the talent to do. So that becomes really even less profitable than even discounting stuff. We start taking on clients that we should not be taking on in geographical areas that we should not be working in because it's too far out of our zone. So that just gets us into this, further into not having money. So that expands to taking more jobs on that we shouldn't take. And there's just no way out. So this business priority pyramid is one way to identify, instead of just focusing on cash flow, what do you have to do like before that and before that and before that? So we're not dealing with the same issues and same challenges every single year. And I think I heard it yesterday. Different. Someone said, how you doing? And I heard the person say, same day, different day, same. So same stuff. Yeah. He used the S word, but, different day. And we don't want to be having the same conversations 3 or 4 or 5 years that we're having today in our business. We want to keep our business moving forward. And that's what the business priority pyramid does. It helps us identify what we need to focus on so we can keep our business moving forward.
Yeah, and a majority of businesses, they'll shut down because they run out of money. Like, this is the main cause. They just run out of money. Otherwise, they'd keep going at it. And I talk about in the Profit First for Lawn and Landscape Businesses book, the percentage of businesses that are just surviving. And if they're making only, anything under like 10%, they're not even thriving. They're barely surviving. And that's a red flag that says, hey, you're on the edge. You're going to run out of cash. You're not creating any sort of savings, anything like that. So it's extremely important, to be aware of what to focus on, because if the only thing we focus on is cash, is eventually, we're going to run out of it. We're not creating, our business as an asset. And, really we need to fix the real problem, not just band-aid the issue right now and get the business into that thriving stage.
Yeah, and systems and processes are absolutely the main thing that can help move our businesses forward, but we have to realize what we have to do to kind of implement those and where we should implement them. So if we're trying to implement them in a place that isn't going to help our business move forward, then we, as great as they are and as fun as they are to create, it's not going to get us to where we need to be. So we know businesses fail because they're doing the wrong thing. 91% of the time, they're focusing on the wrong things. And it gets them in all kinds of other, continues that survival trap. And people just can't move forward. So with the business priority pyramid, you can identify what to move forward. And it's very similar, the pyramid is very similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But this is a very specific hierarchy of needs for businesses. It's foundational, and if we skip any of the foundational components, we can't maintain it.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to circle back here for a moment because, Steve, we work with a lot of businesses who are trying, to move from that survive to thrive in their company, and they don't know what's wrong. They're like, well, I'm doing this, I'm trying to hire and I can't get these employees on track, or, I'm trying to do sales. Well, I'm trying to deliver. Well, I'm trying to create, an onboarding process and training for my new employees. So there's all these things that they focus on. And typically what we find that seriously impacts the cash flow is their, debt issues, right? Or their margin issues. They don't have the proper markup on the services that they're providing, and they're not, and we've talked about this so many times before, they're not tying the cost that supports the product and service that they're providing back to their revenue. So they're not connecting the dots, and this is typically the reason why they run out of cash, to begin with. So, if they're focusing on hiring, sales, delivery, creating a training program, and they're not connecting these pieces, it's only a matter of time before, their business runs out of cash.
Yeah, they have to understand how the gross profit margin is affecting their business, because that's after, we pay our employee, our team, and for our subs and our vendors, our material, that's our money. We have to manage that. And if you don't have enough because the gross profit margin isn't dialed in, then that's going to, that kind of directly launches us right into that survival trap. And, it's interesting. People they want to push on that. Oh, everyone's telling me I'm too expensive, but their gross profit margin might be dialed in, and you just have to figure a way to get to the clients that you can work with that are willing to pay what you need to charge them, as opposed to discounting it and putting yourself back in the survival trap. Some people are so comfortable in the survival trap because that's all they've ever known, that, we have our job really as coaches is to show them a different path in the way out of that. And but sometimes they can grab on tight to it because that's all they've known. That's all they believe that exists. And, we know differently. I know personally that, I worked myself out of that survival trap and started working with the right clients and getting the right prices. And that enabled me to build the right team and create the right processes and systems. So it all starts with making sure that you know your numbers.
Yeah. So that brings us, back to the business priority pyramid. Is the first one is sales. So, and I'm going to try to share this for those who are actually watching us on video, but we'll verbally, talk through what this looks like. So the first level is sales. And Steve, why don't you kind of introduce us to that and talk about that level?
Sure. So do we have enough sales? Because we need enough sales to carry the overhead of the company, to carry the owner's salary. What does the owner need to make? So sales are the first thing, but not just sales. We have to make sure that we're getting the right gross profit margin on those sales. So sales, the top line number, just for sake of top line number, isn't going to get us there. It needs to be top line revenue at the correct gross profit margins. So we always have to make sure that we have enough sales to meet how many people we have on our staff. And one of the things that I frequently see in lawn and landscape businesses, crew sizes are incorrect. So we have the sales, but it's not being generated with the right crew sizes. So basically, 3-man mowing crews on residential is typically a signal that we have the wrong size crew. 3 people on a lawn mowing crew is just too many. We have lots of numbers to support that, but they think they need to discount or lower their prices because they can't hit the numbers, or they have more sales. So they have more sales for inefficient crew. That's not the point either. It's matching up the right size sales to the right size structure and crew size of your business, and also, what the owner needs to make. So if you have 4 or 5 people and you're doing $200,000 in revenue, that's, if you have 5 people and you're doing $200,000 of gross sales, that's only $40,000 per employee, and you should be looking at between $125,000 and $150,000 per crew member. So making sure that your sales are actually generating the numbers that you need to. And, I work with people where we're always looking at, what are we doing that in sales? What are we selling that is not meeting the numbers we need to get? So the idea is to eliminate those and add sales that support the numbers we need to get.
Yeah, so that's the first level, is sales, which equals the creation of cash. The second level is profit, which is the creation of stability. Because without profit in our business, we don't have the blood and the life in order to keep the business going. So, we're not here just to break even and pay the bills. We're really here in the business to generate above and beyond what the business needs. And that profit goes to work in a couple different ways. So one, it can act as tying it back to profit first, an owner distribution. So it's that additional distribution that you would get because you invested, you took the risk as the entrepreneur in creating this business. And it's a way that the business can pay you back and reward you over time. Profit also has another job to do in the business, to where it creates that asset, your business as an asset. So you're essentially creating your own capital. So you're showing like, hey, my business makes X amount of profit, and this is how we put it to work. So you can put it to work by, continuing to save it up. You can use some of it to pay off old debt. So not, debt that you're continuously growing in the business. If you're, using a credit card or continuously getting money out on a line of credit, you go through that debt freeze process and then you pay off the debt. So it doesn't have those liabilities setting in the business, and it can also create other opportunities for your business, depending on how big you grow your business, to where you can create a profit share program with your employees, as well as taking a distribution and then saving those funds up, in your business and creating your own capital. So this is really where, it's simple. The creation of profit creates stability in your business, long-term stability. And that's the second level of this pyramid.
And the third level, at this level, so we have sales, then we have profit. Now we're in order. At this level, the creation of efficiency is developed, and the needs related to ensuring that everything runs like clockwork. With all the organizational efficiencies met, your business can run and, yes, even grow no matter who is on your team, and it can even grow without you being there running it on the day-to-day.
Yep. And then the next level we have here, and just, for those who are listening and they're not seeing the pyramid that we're sharing on the video, there's sales, profit, and order. And this is categorized in get. So, these are things that we need to get. We need to go, make sure these things, do things in the business. They're there for a person. The next level, which is at the give level. So this is impact. So the creation of transformation, and it's how we can utilize our business. So our business is a vessel to help support other things. So they can support a better life for our team. They can support, the community. So I know in, Steve's situation, he's very much involved in his community, and so is his team members. And at my company, we even try to support our team in being paid for some of the volunteer work that they do locally, because our team is all over the US. So in their local community, what are they passionate about and support? And the business has now allowed us to provide that impact for our team members to do that, in their local community.
It's important to follow the levels, though, making sure that our sales are met and we're profitable, and then we have all the systems and processes we need in our business before we get to impact. I have worked with a number of businesses that got ahead of themselves, and they were in the impact stage, donating and giving to the community, and they could not afford to do that. The reality was they did not have the money, and they were at the point where they were actually borrowing money to go give back to the community. And you can give later, but really you need to build the sales, the profitability, and the order first, because you'll be able to give much more later than if you give it prematurely and you can't support it and sustain it. Because one of the things that the nonprofits count on and the community count on is a long-term sustainability contribution. Doing it for 1 year or 2 years, it's nice and it helps, but long-term is kind of what that community and the nonprofits look for. So definitely make sure that you don't get ahead of yourselves in that. One of the things I want to just go back to the order part, and I'm looking at my paper and it talks about the linchpin, is your business designed to operate unabated when key members are not available? And that was one of the biggest things that we worked on in our business. And when they were writing Fix This Next, we're in the book, and we had a couple of linchpin positions in our company. So my job was not to focus on sales. We had that. Profitability, we were working with profit first. We had that. Now it was the linchpins. So I had to work on developing systems around it and having people move into positions. So we had multiple people that could perform multiple linchpin tasks. So again, if I had gotten ahead of myself and gotten really heavy into the impact before I had the linchpin, I would have had a very vulnerable company. One person went out being sick, and COVID 2020 really taught us the value of having redundancy in the business and not counting on linchpins, because at one point 7 out of the 10 people in my office had COVID and were out. So, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when your linchpin positions are going to go down.
Yeah, and at the very top level of this pyramid, there's it's titled legacy, which is the creation of permanence. So, at this level, you're really focusing on, ensuring your business is there for a long term, and these are brands that have been around forever, right? So if you think about brands that have been around for a very long time, and since, like my parents were young or their parents were young, like Ford is a very long standing brand. It has created that legacy. It's here, at a permanent level. So, a few of the auto companies are some great examples of long-term. They did things that were right. They built a brand. They, continue to contribute to their employees, to their community, and now they have this long-standing brand in place that we all know for generations. So that's a great example, of legacy. And we'll dive into these a little bit deeper on each of the areas as we move forward. But the whole point of this business priority pyramid is to evaluate your business and then act. So that way you don't stay stuck as an owner or a leader, just reacting. So that firefighting to issues that you think you see or that are there, but they're not as much as a priority, or even kind of that gut instinct. So I love this tool because it allows us to verify, trust the gut, but verify, and then focus on that single issue that's at hand. So this is, again, the business priority pyramid: sales, profit, order, impact, and legacy.
So I was just thinking of there's even local businesses in New England that have legacy. And it's fifth generation, sixth generation. They're so much a part of the community that, people, it's irrelevant of what they charge. I know that they charge more than the big brands or the box stores, but people will go to support them just because they're so much a part of the community. So that's that legacy. But even they have to focus on sales, profitability, order, and impact and legacy.
Yeah, so I'd like to talk about the Fix This Next process, because if you haven't read the book, this will give you some insight on, how we utilize this process. Like, what does it mean? And it's really, this business priority pyramid, it's really your compass, right? Like, that's the whole point of it. You can take an analysis, and then this will identify what core needs, are going to currently, get addressed by you or your leadership team, and which ones are not. Like, which ones are not core needs that you need to focus on right now. And I think in any growing company, just leaning into this process and trusting it, it will get you there faster, because you're not firefighting, you're not playing, whack-a-mole management, which is very typical in any business. So one of the methods that they utilize in this is what they call the OMEN method. And OMEN stands for objective, measure, evaluate, and nurture. And Steve, I know that, you've utilized this several times in your business as you've continued to approach different, scales of growth, and kind of like, well, what do we need? What's our objective? How are we going to measure it? How are we going to evaluate it, and how to nurture it? And I feel like in several conversations, this is something just that you and your team now do naturally when you're approaching challenges and problems or changes in the business. Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
Yeah, and it wasn't really easy at first. It's interesting when there's a lot of challenge or struggle in a business, it becomes very emotional. And sometimes there's finger pointing, which never is helpful. And there's people get defensive, again, which is never helpful. So we've really come up with a way of looking at it and asking, first off, where are we on the priority pyramid? Because it can change. You're not permanently in the need to do sales. You're not permanently in the impact. There are certain times of the year for us that we must focus on our sales. That must be the number one priority. And then when we hit a little obstacle that our system or process is not handling, at that time, we must focus on that system and process. So you're going to move up and down through this priority pyramid. It's not a permanent function. If we don't focus on our sales during our 12 weeks of spring, it would create a whole nother set of issues later on in the year, regardless of if we have perfect processes, if we're not focused on sales. The other item is profitability. And so when we're talking about different services that we're going to offer, margins and markups, we know what those numbers have to be. So when we talk about raising prices, we don't just brush stroke everything across the whole company. We look at individual either accounts or services and make a decision based on those. Are those services, is that customer supporting the numbers that we need to hit? So the OMEN process, gets you to focus on, you can use it in each level of the business priority pyramid, and to help you decide, is that we need to be focusing on? And sometimes I admit that if I didn't have this, I'd be focusing on the wrong things. It really clearly defines it. So then all of a sudden the whole team knows what to focus on, and everyone's there. Instead of I'm focusing on this, my office manager is focusing on that, my operations manager is focusing on this, and we're all fragmented and nothing gets done. When you go through the Omen process, you can see the entire team can focus on what needs to be done.
Yeah, so it's objective, like what's the objective of the vital need? So let's say you took an assessment and you realize that sales is an objective, like that's a vital need. You need to figure out your sales process, who you serve, whatever that is, and then measure it. So what are the measures for this vital need and how can you track it? It could be, new clients. It could be, the number of leads that come in that turn into sales. So there are several things, KPIs, key performance indicators that you can utilize to measure, this vital need being implemented. And evaluation. So how often will you evaluate it and identify any red flags that's stopping its progression? So this is something, when we focus on something in our business, we need to not just say like, hey, go get this done. I expect you guys to have this done by Friday or by next week, and then, update me on it. It's like, as a leader, we need to be intentional to continue to evaluate and come back and not just kind of set it free, right? It's like, have a conversation until you don't need to have those conversations anymore. Make sure your team is addressing this. And then the last one, nurture. So, and I love this one because we've talked several times on, especially in like our groups, you're not the champion. Like the business owner typically is not the champion. So who's responsible for moving it forward? Who's responsible for those sales? Who's responsible for reporting the, evaluation and the measures to you as the leader or the business owner? While business is small, it's going to be us. But then there's going to be a point as we scale and grow where it can't be us anymore. There's more important things for us to do. So it's really the team who's responsible of moving it forward, who's supporting it. And then they also need to identify like, how often are they going to check on it and bring it back to you? So that's the Omen method. And then the last step in the Fix This Next process is resolve the issues. So resolve the sales issues and then readdress. What is the vital need that needs to be addressed next? So this is something where it's fluid, where you're going to do the assessment, you're going to focus on the biggest problem, you're going to resolve it, and then you're going to do the assessment again, and you're going to see, well, what's after that?
So one of the things, and I was just working on a client on the sales issue. So one of the challenges is they get lots of leads. Matter of fact, they get probably too many leads. So they run too many leads. The challenge is there's no sales system. There's no sales process. The qualifications, qualifying the customers, there's not really a system. There's not a script. When they go on a sales call, everybody's running their own thing. So they have 3 or 4 salespeople all doing their own thing. There's not a system for it. So identifying, okay, we're measuring this. The objective is to get more sales, right? So one of it is, how many leads do we have that it's coming in? And, the next is how many sales or how many are we closing? So and we're evaluating that, what's the close ratio on these leads? So that's kind of how it works. And then once you get that system up and running and you get this dialed in, then you can start nurturing what works and making it better. But you have to really resolve and readdress those issues, because once that's done, if sales isn't enough, then what else is it that's going on in sales? Is it a timeline? Can we tell? We can't promise a particular deliverable date. So there's other things that you have to look at in that. And then you can just move it up in the pyramid. Why is the profitability, if you have lots of sales, but the profitability is not there? What's the objective? 15% net income. Where are we at? We're at 8 now. Okay, so we know that we need 7 more percent. And then we can start looking at, well, what's our gross profit margin and measure that. and then evaluate, where we need to be for our gross profit margin, and then what our prices need to be. And then once we get our gross profit margin dialed in, our profit margin dialed in, then how do we nurture that? Who's going to track and measure that and keep on top of that?
Yeah, and this is a great example of when it flows from sales to profit, right? And I've heard people say, and I've talked about this several times, where I say growth in a business doesn't just mean top line revenue. Growth can be improving the areas of your business that you need to focus on, whether it's recruitment or, efficiencies, standard operating procedures, training programs, managing your financials. Like that can be growth as well in your business. So one of the things that I continuously hear, and I know, Steve, you've heard this too, is they'll get all this revenue and they're like, we're making more money. But guess what? They're not making profit. So the more money they make, that profit margin continues to shrink. And then they don't have, cash reserves. They're drowning in debt. They think that more money, means more money, but you can work smarter, not harder. And you can do less sales and have a higher profit margin. So it's really being smart about how you're approaching your business and looking at, what are we offering? Are we pricing right in our sales? Are we closing enough of our ideal customers? And does that then generate the profit that we need? Is it eradicating the debt in the business, which is what Profit First, is all about, is eradicating entrepreneurial poverty, right? Is the margins and markup healthy? Are we collecting our money in the cadence that we need to? Is it consistent? Do we have a system in place for that? And then is it enough money, what we're selling, and the cost to build that long-term sustainability? So keeping profit in the business, building your own capital, and building your business out to be an asset. And I think that's the most important piece of the pyramid, is like, once you get the sales in place, then you're profitable and you can really treat your business as an asset and not an ATM machine. And I've seen so many clients who have come to us and we worked with them, whether it's at Green Profit Academy or Core Growth Strategies, where they're putting all these expenses through their business because they don't want to pay taxes. And what they're really doing is they're drowning their business in expense and debt, and they're not getting a clear picture of what potential their business has, or they're using their business, to work on their houses or another business or, rental properties or these other things. And it's just pulling all the life out of the business, and it's not allowing the profit to stay in the business. So they're really hurting themselves. And any business, that they're kind of moving these funds around to or pulling these funds out of, because they're not allowing the business to show how it can perform and what it can do for them long term.
Yeah, and I think once people stop that and really focus on building the business of their dreams and building the business by using, the OMIN and making sure everything is measurable and everything is in the right place at the right time, saving a couple dollars on taxes is irrelevant at that point. Because you can, am I tripping over, dollar bills to pick up pennies? That's kind of the mentality. And they think somehow, chasing these pennies and tripping over and letting the dollar bills in front of them just not be part of their life is kind of it's kind of being comfortable in the survival trap. They're blind to the opportunities and they're focusing on the pennies, a few cents here and there, and they're just missing up opportunity by doing all this, stuff they don't need to do. And it's a lot of it, honestly, it's poor advice, because they're getting advice from people who are not business coaches, they're not certified in any information, and even some business people, if you really, ask them, they'll give you advice, but they don't look at your balance sheet. They're not looking at your P&L. They're not looking at your 5-year goals. So if people are giving, and I've had it, people are giving me advice who never saw my balance sheet. Don't ever trust anyone who gives you information or advice without ever seeing your P&L and balance sheet and cash flow statements, because they don't know. And they could be literally, what should I have for dinner? Well, if I don't know, are you gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian? Are you on a keto diet, a high protein? I don't know. It depends, right? So people get a lot of bad advice, me included. And, grow your business, grow top line, borrow all this money to buy all this equipment to grow the business. And then what I ended up with was too much month at the end of the money. So too many payments because I wasn't balancing my growth with my percentage of my equipment. So here's the dilemma. What happens is, so we have too much month at the end of the money. So now oh my gosh, I got to pay off all this equipment. So we suck that money, the cash out of the business to pay off the equipment. And then we can't meet payroll. We can't pay ourselves. So there's a balance in reality there. So you should have a percentage of your revenue should be for equipment, but only a certain percentage. And that's kind of the way to manage it. And I'm not a huge fan of just trying to pay off all your equipment debt because your customers should be your equipment should be going to work, performing services, and generating revenue that pays that debt. It should not be coming out of the owner's pocket. It should not be coming out of the stability accounts, our profit accounts in our business.
Yeah. And I know, this is something that we talk about in the Profit First for Lawn and Landscape Businesses book is we created the scalable growth business model for this industry so they could have clarity just by looking at, the charts, like what is healthy? What's healthy for my business model and my revenue level? What should I be spending? And when anybody's ever done the scalable growth business model assessment, which is an advanced version of the Profit First assessment, we see things right away. And that's why I love that assessment is because we can see right away, okay, something's wrong with your equipment or something's wrong with your labor, and there's some profit bleeds here. Let's dig a little bit deeper. So instead of shuffling around in the financial statements and the cash flow, we can zero in on these things quicker. And at the same time, we can address some of these other things like the Fix This Next assessment points out, hey, let's talk about sales. And it will typically tie together, right? We found a lot of businesses that aren't pricing their labor or their materials or their equipment properly. The margins and the markups on them are off. And that's what's creating the problem with the cash flow, right? Maybe they have enough sales, but then they're going, well, let's improve our sales process. Okay, well, tell me about your sales process. What does this look like? All right, well, now let's look at this other area and see how you're doing over here. So it gets us there a lot faster leaning into these tools.
Yeah, and the tools really shine a lot of light on the challenges really quickly. And one of the biggest challenges is I find people are not marking up the materials enough. They're not even marking it up to retail, or they're buying materials almost at retail, so they can't mark it up very much because it's already at retail and or close to retail. So that's a little bit of a challenge. And then the other thing is they have too much equipment, way too much equipment. So they need to charge. It kind of puts them in a disadvantage competitively because where they should be charging X, they have to charge X plus because they have way too much equipment, but they need to make these payments. So what happens typically is they don't raise their price, they keep the price the same, and then how that equipment gets paid is either they use a line of credit to make the equipment payments, they use credit cards to make the equipment payments, or those equipment payments come out of their pay. So instead of making what the owner should be making for a business of that size, they take half and they use the other half of their income to invest back in the business. And you can do that for a little bit, but you can't make that a perpetual habit. And if you are going to do that, you have to know the beginning date of that and the ending date of that. And you also then have to have return on investment to get that money back that you invested back into it. Letting it just go into the business and never getting it back. No one would ever invest or put their money in a bank and just say, oh, it's for an investment that you never get back. That's just not a real good business strategy.
Yeah, and the rule of thumb when it comes to, creating that long-term stability in your business with your profit is you want to make sure you have at least 3 months or longer, right? But start with 3 months and as a goal of a cash reserves. So that way, if you had to shut your doors, and this is a profit first method as well, if you have to shut your doors for 3 months, you will come back 3 months later and your business will still be there. So it helps save that money intentionally. So if something happens, then that money's there to support you and your business and, your team. So that's one of the valuable kind of tips and tricks that we talk about, where people are like, well, how do I know, is it enough profit, or what does this look like, or well, how much should I save? And businesses will start off where they're like, okay, we're going to start with 1 week. And then we're going to move to 2 weeks of savings and 3 weeks. And the point is to get it up to that 3 months of savings, because it's not a matter of, that a rainy day is going to happen, right? It's going to happen. It's just, are you going to be prepared for it? Like a storm will come. Are you going to be prepared for that storm? We saw a lot of this during COVID with businesses. The ones that survived the best were the ones that were implementing profit first, whether they were implementing it for 2 months or 5 years. It made a huge difference on how they weathered that storm and managing their business.
And, that's a good point. You don't have to try to save 3 months all in 1 year. You can start out with 1 week, save 1 week over, a year's period worth of operating capital. So, and then next year, save another week, because in 4 years, you're going to have a month. But if you didn't start now and do 1 week, in 4 years, you're going to be in the same spot. And that's, one of those things I talked about. We don't want to be having the same conversations in 4 years with the same exact challenges 4 years later. We don't want to have that. We want to move the business. We want to move it forward. And money is, it's interesting. I come from the green industry. You're thinking, man, if I had the right trucks, the right mowers, Z-sprays, spreader sprayers, I know the right seed to use, how many microbes are on my organic fertilizer, I'm going to be successful. That I have the best business card or the best flyer. Look how cool my wrap is on my truck. And that's all great. But, what we're talking about with sales, profit, order, impact, and legacy is really the business side of any business, whether it's the green industry or not. And that's kind of when my business finally started really growing and being, really profitable, was when I understood that it's great to do all that. I love that. Look at my new skid steer, or my new backhoe, or look at this cool mini excavator, and I can spin the head around, and it's a swivel, and I can pivot 18 ways. But if I don't know how to charge for that, if I don't know how to get my return on investment on that mini X, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So the next level is order, and this is creating efficiency. And it's one of my most favorites because it has to do with systemization, which I love to do. So, and it ties back to, getting your business to run like clockwork. And some of you might be familiar with the Clockwork book. If you're not, I would highly suggest picking it up. It's another great creation by Michalowikz. But it helps, the focus and the efficiency in your business. And this has to do with, minimizing wasted effort, right? So not only time, but you're looking at like what slows down your business, what slows down your production in the field, what slows down things in the office, what's slowing down your collections on your receivables. And as Steve spoke on it earlier as well, it's also looking at bottlenecks in your business. So is there a position in your business that only one person can hold? Like, are you handcuffed to this person? And this is very typical in small business, where they're like, I have this person and they can do everything. And I don't know what I would do without them. I know because I've had that person. And we had to figure out, how do we structure our business so even if that person doesn't show up to work or they're on vacation, our world can still go round. So that's really important, which also gets into role alignment. So people's roles and responsibilities are matched to their talent, which is something that Steve loves to coach on as a, certified Clifton Strengths coach. And that can make a huge difference in your business. Are the right people in the right roles doing the right things.
And Christine and I, we've come up with that term, inspired, desired accountability. And that's when people really step up into their roles and they, raise the bar even higher than our own expectations. And that is when you have that role alignment, when you're having people's talents and strengths, align really directly with the role that they're serving in the company. And that's where you get, levels of performance that are beyond any of our expectations, even their own. I'm having people really step into their leadership roles because their role alignment is so congruent with everything that they're doing and all of their energy, that they're taking even a bigger role in the company and in the leadership than they were hired for it, or expected to ever reach. So that role alignment, if we wonder why people are disengaged, it's typically because the job that they're doing doesn't align with their talents and strengths. So that's one of the things that, we work with through our Clifton Strength Coaching program to make sure that our team members are aligned with their right roles. And one of the other things, and I shared this with someone yesterday, when we have that saying, I've heard a lot of business owners, why can't people think like me? Why can't they do like this? Why can't they be like me? The challenge is when we identify our Clifton strengths or our talent themes, when we're in a group or we're on a team, whatever strengths we have, we're that person. So if you're the highest communicator and you say, why can't everybody communicate like me? Well, because you're the communicator. You're the top dog in that. You have the highest skill talent in that. Other people might have more discipline or more adaptability or more maximizer or more empathy. But when you're in a group, you're the high communicator. Or if you have high empathy, you may be saying, why can't people feel what I'm feeling? Because you're the empathy person. You're that. That's your superpower. That's your strength. So just, be fair to everyone and yourself and really step into your strengths and recognize what you contribute to that team. Now, if everybody was the same, it's not a team. It's kind of, a mono focus, and you don't have all the diversity that a team needs to cover each other's lack of strengths or less than strengths. So just be aware of what you carry and bring to a team.
So our next level is impact, and I feel like some of these feed into each other as we're looking at like who's the people on their team, what are their strengths or talents, how can we continue to develop them. So as we said earlier, the impact focuses on the creation of transformation, and a lot of business owners they don't know that this level even exists, or it can be a level that's misunderstood. So when we think of impact, we also often think of our business like how it impacts the world. However, the needs that must be addressed at this level are related to client transformation and how our company aligns with our team, our vendors, and our community, but not the wider world at that moment. So just like our little bubble that we have, like our businesses here, our team members show up, how can we support them? They connect with our customers. How can we make our customers' lives better? So that's that impact and transformation level. And it's really there to benefit our team and the people that we're closely connected with, in that business community, and also getting some of, those dreams aligned. It's like the people that are on our team, how else can we help them? What are their dreams? How can we support them?
And, this is this moving beyond just transactional relationships with our customers and our vendors is when you're in that impact stage. And one of the things, part of our purpose statement is, to have relationships that are mutually fulfilling. So it's not win-win. It's really mutually fulfilling. Our vendors, our clients, our team members here, they become more by being involved in interacting with our company. So it's beyond transactional. And that's not always easy for some clients to get that, but the people who love that, they want that mutually fulfilling relationship. There are giant pumpkins, and they get us more giant pumpkins. So it's really a matter of like moving past just the transaction. And same thing with vendors. Like, are our vendors looking out for us? It's not just a matter of who can we get the cheapest 3-way herbicide from. It's like, who knows our program, who recognizes the level and quality of service that we provide, and they're going to recommend a product that supports that. So once you move out of that transaction, you'll know you're in impact. And the dream alignment, helping our team, live their dreams, whether it's professionally, personally, buying a home, buying a car that they can rely on, that's not a beater, And sometimes that dream alignment actually means they have to leave our company. It means they have to move on to the career that's going to best suit them and their family. And we're happy for them. It doesn't upset us, but that can also be part of the dream alignment. And the integrity, the feedback in the community, wherever you go, you don't have to hide. Your people don't have to hide in the grocery store because your company didn't meet a promise or a deliverable or doesn't have a strong reputation in the community. And that's also when you reach the impact level. In complementary networking. So you have all of this like feeding back to your company as far as like getting work. And we landed a really big account this year. And it was because people on the board, the people who were the directors, our name kept coming up in all these conversations, regardless of who they asked. And it got to the point, it was ridiculous. They're like, well, this doesn't make any, you're the company. If everybody we're asking is saying you're the company, and that's because we had developed all these networks in these different communities in our own community, and it kept pointing back to us. And that's when you've hit that impact.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good story. So the last one, of course, is legacy. And this is the highest level of focus. And it's the creation of permanence, really, which we were kind of talking about earlier. So ensuring that your business and the impact it delivers will live on after you move on. And, it requires that certain needs are met. So with this, if you want your business to continue to thrive for generations to come, you'll have to consider the big questions such as like, what is your long-term vision for your company? And how will your business adapt to changes in your industry and consumer demand and the world? And something that I think of that's around this is, the changes in the weather and things that are happening on the planet. It's some of these bigger storms that are coming in and, impacting communities, or we go through droughts or, flooding and things like that, or some areas get an ample amount of snow when they typically don't, or vice versa. So really thinking about what are some things that will impact the company if we do want it to live long term? What are some of the things that we need to consider, in changing our offering or how we service our customers as we continue to move forward in time? And, that's are going to be changing, in the environment, even with our generations, it's from generation to generation. Everybody is different. Their values change, their needs change. I know right now we're having a lot of trouble recruiting in the lawn and landscape industry with finding people. And the other side of that is technology showing up to kind of close that gap. So, the robotic mowers and whatnot. So really thinking in futures when it comes to this legacy and identifying, is this something that we want? Do I want to just sell my business, or is this something that I want to make sure stays around, way after I'm gone? And maybe I'm going to pass it down to my grandchildren, or my children to my grandchildren.
And one of the things, people talk about is passing the company down, passing it to the next generation. And when I work with people, it's like, hey, let's get Profit First going. Let's get Punk and Pling going. And I kind of explain it like, if you're going to hand this off to someone, let's hand it off healthy. Let's not run it to the last, mile and hand them the keys to, an empty gas tank. It needs new brakes. The tires are worn out. Let's hand it off with a full gas tank, new tires, and a nice, healthy business, and also with systems. Because a lot of times when we hand these businesses off, now all of a sudden the new generation's in charge and they don't know what to do. So if they don't have the systems, they start focusing on the wrong things. 91% of their time is focused on the wrong things. And that's why most businesses don't make it past 2 generations. But if you have the systems, And the mission, vision, and purpose play right into that, because is it going to serve the mission, vision, and purpose? Are we going to have systems involved? We have our mission, vision, and our business accelerator workshop, and I worked with one of our clients that we're coaching, and his mission came out to sound, I'm not going to get it exactly, but it was like this: to fulfill our purpose of helping people. And it's so infinite. So it's not helping people mow lawns. So if things change, it could be helping people beautify their landscapes. But it could be helping people. It could be their team, their community, their clients, their vendors, themselves. So I love the mission, because no matter what changes, whether we're using robotic mowers, that's how is it helping people? Always going back to the mission of helping people and their purpose. That was their purpose, to be in business right up front, is to help people. So that's one of those long-term missions that you can live around. If you have finite, mission statements, we're going to hit X amount of dollars, we're going to have so many customers. When you get there, then a whole nother mission has to be recreated. So it's not generationally, successful. So we talk about creating missions. Mission statement should be inspirational and aspirational, and it really should be under 10 to 12 words, and that a mission statement can move somebody. Because imagine if we create a mission today, a statement that could live on for 3 or 4 generations, and they could rally around that. I mean, that's legacy.
Yeah, and I think the important part that you're sharing is this dynamic adaption, right? It's like it's in your mission statement, it's in your purpose. Excuse me. It's in how you show up and the services that you provide. So continuing to stay connected to that, visit it, and on an ongoing basis, adapt and consistently improve and find better ways than what you were doing before. So kind of like that self competition, like only comparing yourself to who you once were, and that's it. And nobody else's company. Like, this is just about you. So
one of the exercises, like, I kind of was thinking, okay, I have to get ready. I have my 40 somethings that are coming up. So how do I get the company ready for them to run? But then I have my 20 somethings. So what am I doing today to get the company ready for them to run? And then what about the 10, 12-year-olds that are going to be running the company, in 20 or 30 years from now? So what does the company have to look like for them to run it? So, that's kind of my job and my legacy role, is looking out 20 years, and getting that lined up. Now, I don't have to have every detail, because things are going to change. Technology is going to change. I mean, 30 years, if you said I Googled it, nobody would even know what you're talking about. And that's why I think that mission statement that is more infinite is going to serve. But it's a big responsibility to create all this. So awesome.
Yeah. So the business priority pyramid, it's really there to be a guiding system and direct our instincts, right? Because we have these instincts as people to where we can pick up on things if we're talking to somebody or we're in a situation, and I call it like the spidey senses, right? Where it's like my spidey senses are telling me like this isn't right or this feels off, but our businesses aren't going to communicate that way to us. Like, we can walk into our business and go, oh, well, my gut instinct says this, which gut instinct is great. But, again, trust and verify. So the Fix This Next assessment is there to really get you focused on what your business is telling you it needs. And the business priority pyramid, that's your guiding system. So that's your compass, to really direct your instincts and make sure you and your team are focusing on the right things and gaining the most traction on moving forward in your business.
So take the assessment. It's going to be down in the show notes. If you're just listening to this, I'm pretty sure you can still find it in the show notes. The assessment, every person I've talked to that has taken this Fix This Next assessment has gotten some benefit from it. And it's always led to some good conversation and focusing on what's next.
Yeah, and I'll also include the link to purchase the book if you have not listened to it yet, I definitely, or read it. I listened to my books. I'll include the link for you to find the book as well in the show notes, in addition to the assessment.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we look forward to you joining us on the next podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.